So I'm glad to see you. Thank you for coming. Last year, you were all so wonderful with your questions, and I want to make sure I cover everything. But a big thing everybody asked me was about setting up your own home apothecary. Because once you get things from me, or if I recommend something and you're not where I am and you go get it, it's nice to know what you can do with it at home and not have to worry about buying something really expensive. So I brought a few of my things just as examples, and as I'm going over it, please ask me if you think you might have something that works. I'll tell you if it will. And if I don't get to everyone, you can always come back to the booth and I'll spend more time with you. I don't mind at all. So, and if we get done covering the apothecary and preparations, I will open it up if anybody has questions about anything they need to ask. Because I'm sure if you thought of it, someone else here would like to know about it too. So don't be afraid to ask me. I don't mind at all. So a lot of people, when you say home apothecary, they think, is that something funny I need to have? It's not. Apothecary just means that's your preparative place that you take whatever herbs you have, whether you bring them in and store them or harvest them. And if you have questions about that, even though I do it, ask me that too. It's where you prepare them and you get it ready to use it for whatever use you want to. Whether you're going to store it, you're going to grind it and use it as a tea, you're going to use it in a preparation, make a tincture. These are the things that you can have in your kitchen. And there's a lot of things out there now that they tell you are great, but they're expensive. And there's things you probably have knocking around your kitchen if you have an old family member, or like old family kitchens, that you wouldn't think about using. So that's what I want to cover just a little bit now. First of all, most of my things are well loved, so you'll see there's some herbs in them because I have been using them. This is one of my big mortar and pestles. This is a good example. The one thing I will tell you is if you're going to do herbal stuff at home, everything dried has oils. Don't get a wooden one. If you have a wooden one, if it's not sealed right, it's going to take on everything. And you run the chance of taking whatever's off of it was sealed with. So now you're ingesting that. So that's not a good thing. But you all can feel free to come and play with us in the booth if you want, or look at it here. It's a big stone mortar and pestle. This is your pestle. And the reason the bowl is so heavy is so you can even crack saw palmetto berry, anything. I can grind coffee in this. Done it many times. But it will grind everything down. You can also grind any kind of other plant matter. Always remove the stems. And it's all rough inside. This is another example. This is stainless steel. Stainless steel is never a bad way to go. Warning though, if you get something very hard, it will bounce. If you don't crack it, you might have it come back to visit you. She'll come out of there. But they work very well as well. And they're both very friendly to clean. And then there's a third way. I'm sure everybody has one of these in their cupboard, or most of us do. This is just a coffee grinder. Any kind of plant matter, this will work. Even if you have it in your garden, don't be afraid to bring it in, dry it, harvest it. But my recommendation is once it's herbs, don't go back to coffee, don't go back to anything. They're real simple to use, real easy to pick up. And then I brought some example of jars. Canning jars work great. But everybody has a family member that gets these beautiful candle jars that they throw out. If you sanitize them and clean them, these will keep your herbs for like a couple of years. Literally. They'll keep them dry, they will keep them safe, they will keep them from molding. So, if you know somebody with those, feel free to use them. Okay, if you're going to get the candle wax out, you know how they have the little metal piece? Please don't microwave that. That's a very bad idea. You'll have your own light show. But if you take a butter knife and get the metal out, you can put it in the microwave for 30 seconds and pour it out and wipe it. You have to do it a couple of times. And then I would suggest hot scalding water. Either you boil if you don't have a dishwasher, and so do that a few times, or run it through the dishwasher twice. But they come right out. And once the wax, you can also put those in just a kettle. If anybody here cans, we have our canning pots. Stick them in there, it'll warm the wax and out it comes. And you can clean them up and reuse them. But the seal on those is fantastic for keeping any of your preparations. Even if you want to do tinctures, it seals it enough. So that was something I was asked last year that I wanted to touch on because I figured we all have things like that. And a lot of people I found, because tea sold bags, most of your health food store tea, even if you go for cold and flu or whatever, all you need is a tea ball. Even if you make it yourself or mix it yourself. It's stainless steel, and once you buy one of these, you don't have to buy them again. If you don't have one of those, we all have one of those little strainers that are so microscopic we don't know what to do with. That'll set in the cup too.
What about like a regular tea kettle that has the...
Perfect. You can use that as well. You just add as much as you need, and that'll work as well. And the other thing that'll work, which I didn't bring mine, I apologize, but I have 3 children, and it's glass, is my Bodum. I don't know if you have seen the French press coffee pots. Often you can pick up a couple of dollars in the thrift store. If you go to a coffee house, much more. But they will press and steep and make a really strong infusion. If you need a stronger one, they work very well. Very well. Does anybody have any questions? Am I going too fast? Okay. Is there anybody have any questions about anything they might have at home they might be able to use? No? Okay. Now,
I just want to say,
that's a good tip. That's another thing. Anytime you come to one of my classes, if you guys have something to share, please feel free. She was saying that she uses those candle jars, and popping them in the freezer, the wax pops right out, and then you don't have to worry about film. So I'll always share that too if somebody comes up with a good tip. That's a great one, and I forgot about it.
Sure. How about the frankincense and like a cast iron? Is that going to react to certain herbs? Or is that
Certain herbs it will.
Okay.
It will. And you stand a chance. I have a lot of family cast iron, which you don't get the metal flakes off of. A lot of the new stuff, it looks beautiful, but the Lodge and things that they sell now, you'll notice the coating comes off of. And if they're coating it with something, you're going to be ingesting it. But I love cast iron. If you have a very old one, you could
I
try.
like the Japanese teapot thing.
Okay. Yeah, you can try it. My biggest suggestion with something like that is a big way to know if you're making your own herbs, your preparation, so you know there's no oils or anything in it, or if you have something organic for me, if you brew it in a pot and it looks like it has an oil sheen on top, you're leaching coating off of whatever you're brewing it in. So you can tell right away. It's just kind of looks like one of the old ponds we saw when we were a kid. That's the best way for me to describe it. If you want to know what you're looking for, and I would throw it out or use it on something, because a lot of herbs you can use to wash something or soak something. If you don't want to throw it out, just don't ingest it, because nowadays we don't know what they coat things with, and you might cause more problems. So that was a good question. Anybody else? All right, well, I always open it up to what you all want to know. Last year everybody had great questions, because I can talk about a lot of things and I'll cover things, but if there's anything anybody wants to cover that they feel, if someone has cancer, diabetes, anxiety, anything, feel free to ask me, because everybody knows someone or has it. Yeah.
Winter preparations for health?
Winter preparations?
For health.
For health? I'm assuming you mean like cold season, immune building.
I asked my sister, and that's what she said to ask.
Okay. All right. Well, I can cover a broad spectrum on that. Here, let's see. Well, if they're for winter preparations, what we used to do, because I grew up in the Shanga Mountains here in New York, and we were in the mountains. We put up our medicine for the winter. You wanted to boost everybody's immunity, because we were a farm family. You were out at 3:30 in the morning in all kinds of climates, because the animals don't wait for you. And it doesn't matter if you have a farm, we all have to go somewhere. So you stuff it out. So a good thing to stock, you want to make sure that you have your rose hips. You want to make sure that you stock a good antibiotic. Olive leaf is wonderful. I think I covered this last time too. Echinacea though, please, anybody who has autoimmune disease or rheumatoid arthritis or anything like that, long-term echinacea will make you feel awful. It will. It'll work as an antibiotic, but in the interim you're going to feel just horrible. It does not play nice with that. So you want to go for something like olive leaf or plantain, which by the way grows like crazy around here. Yep. That is another good one. If you want to start actually bringing in your own and finding your own. And there's a lot of good weeds walks too. Find out as much as you can.
I think of plantain more effective, but would you drink that tea?
Absolutely. It is. Plantain is safe for internal and external. It's also safe for animals, by the way. Because I know we have a lot of pet lovers or people who have animals. You can give it to them as well. It will not hurt them. Another good question. Other things that you'll want to stock for the winter is you want to have things on hand like horehound. If anybody starts getting any kind of cough, horehound will get rid of it immediately, especially this area, which I lived in for years. Pneumonia is a problem. Bronchitis is a problem. So you want to go for horehound. You also want to get marshmallow root, nettle, mullein, which by the way, all grow around here. If anybody ever wants to know what they look like, please ask me. I will tell you so you can find it or grow it in your yard. A lot of these things can be transferred to your own yard if you want to cultivate them. If you have a green thumb, you can take them in for the winter and make your own. Nettle, mullein, marshmallow root, horehound. If I go too fast, just throw something at me. It's okay. Yes?
Sound like you said melon?
Mullein. It's Mullein.
Thank you.
You all have probably seen it around here, and sometime please, if you ever want me to bring plants with me, even if I'm just at the festival so you can look at them, I will. Yeah, I will bring plants. Just if you want to come by and ask me, I'll bring plants up. If I'm not doing a class, I'll make sure you see them in the booth. Mullein is a very broadleaf, fuzzy leaf plant. You see it everywhere. It gets a tall spike with yellow flowers. You probably have all passed it. There's a ton of it in the Alabama swamps if you go out that way. Just growing on the side of the road. Yep. Yep, and they grow right in your yard. There's a lot of things that you can do to build your own, and that's, again, part of your own apothecary. You don't always have to come get them from me. You can have them yourself and do that preparation every winter. Is there anything else that you want you to ask me? That's just a few of them. You can also have, another good one is red clover. Red clover is a blood builder. That's going to build your immune system. Always a good one. Also very good with pneumonia to brew. Yes?
I was going to ask, is there any herbs in particular that help the ancestors brought?
Thistle was a big one. Thistle is very medicinal. Mine brought over marshmallow root. That was a big one. I had a ton of that growing all over the property. Elderberry. Elderberry was another one brought over. And we use that for a lot. That's another one for the winter cabinet. Which, you're welcome. Which I will sometimes go back to things if somebody comes up with something good to add to what we talked about. Yeah, elderberry is another good one. Yes?
I didn't hear what she asked. So
She asked about our Celtic ancestors. I have Celtic and Irish roots, and I know I was raised by my grandmother. To give you a little idea for those who haven't been here, it's passed down through the women in my family. I am fourth generation because I had 4 generations teaching me at one time, which is invaluable. I mean, it's very special to me. But I went and got my certification as well. I have my schooling for it. So, but she was asking me about what plants they brought over. Thistle was a big one. Thistle is a wonderful source of vitamin C and vitamin D. I know it is terrible to harvest. I know it hurts. But it is fantastic. With thistle, that's a good question. If you get it young, you can eat it, which is great. I mean, it does taste very good. You can also take the insides and cut it. It almost is like a rhubarb consistency if you want to get the vitamins that way. So we all have family that does not drink tea. You can bread it, and eat it that way. But the thistle part of the bulb is the seed. And you can use the seed in a pinch. I will warn you though, once the seed dries, you're not going to get as much of the herbal properties out of it. You're not at all. The actual stem. The stem has the meat and also the root. If you think about it, where's the strongest part of anything? It's our roots, it's the plant roots. I mean, you can use many things for other, but if you're using a plant, if you want the strongest concentration. That was a little tidbit from my great grandmother and my grandmother, a way to make us remember when we were little. The strongest is our roots. And that's what you want to look for. If you can dig those roots out, dandelion root, burdock root, thistle root. And if you need to use the plant, you can also use the inside of the stalk. Yes?
That's what I was going to ask. How do you remove the actual thorns and nettles from them?
Well, if you have one of the old potato peelers, you know, the ones that kind of look like an experiment that are in the drawer, they work great because they're sharp enough. You can just actually, if you run it away from you, you can just peel it right off. I do recommend gloves though. I have made that mistake. I do recommend gloves. But it works great, and then you can use it any way that you want. Now, if you're drying the inside of the plant to use with the leaves, the inside has a lot of water content. So you're gonna have to, my suggestion is if you don't have one of the big fancy dryers, oven, warm, and then turn it. Just lay it out on a cookie sheet. Or if you've got big enough pieces, you can also raise it up on a cookie sheet, or the cookie racks for cooling. They work really well too, especially the ones with little squares. So
now the root, would you grind it or grind and cover it up and grind it, or?
yeah, that root doesn't get too hard to grind or cut up. There are some roots that I will recommend if you ask me to cut them up before you put them away, because otherwise it basically takes a jackhammer. You're not getting through them. They're really hard. It's better in small pieces. Then you can crack them up. And you can use that. Dock is very bad. That's another one that grows in this area that could go into the winter cabinet. Thank you, Emma. Dock is another one that's really good. That's a blood cleanser. It also will, when somebody has bronchitis or has a really hard time with their lungs filling up, from if they're struggling with pneumonia, Dock will help. Yellow Dock.
How is that spelled?
D-O-C-K. And it's the yellow that you'd like to use. Yes?
If we're using the roots and we're collecting plants from areas we may not be familiar with, is there anything we need to do just to ensure that anything that's leached into the groundwater doesn't get concentrated?
That's a really good question. And it's a hard one. Sure. She was asking if you guys go out wild foraging and you're not sure about, you see a plant, you want to collect the roots from there, you're not sure where it came from, is there anything you can do to help with the preparation so you don't gather something you're not supposed to? Like fertilizer or runoff. Road runoff is another bad one you need to watch for, especially here with our salt. If it's right next to the road, I would honestly avoid it unless you're going to bring the plant and start a 2-year cycle on it yourself. Because it,
Even an endangered plant.
yes. Exactly. No, that's a good point as well. A lot of things, always make sure you know your plants, because if it's an endangered one, you may not be able to take it. That is a very good point. A lot of these things I'm telling you though, they aren't, so you'd be okay. And always ask permission if you think somebody might be living there or near there. I have done it, you know, and asked if somebody wanted a plant and needed something. I'll just go knock on a door. Many times a homemade loaf of bread or cookies is a good exchange. And they're happy because it's gone, because to them it's a weed. And now we know what it is. I've done that for the last few months, in fact, for where I moved. So that's another good point. And that's something I want to bring up. There's a lot of weed walks, and I do them as well. And my husband has done them. You can get into a weed walk and have somebody take you through the area and point these things out. Show them to you if you want to learn that as well. All good things. Thank you guys.
When you make a tea out of something, you know how like some teas they need to sit for a little
color. If it's going to sit for a while, you want to make sure you don't, if you can't see through it, I'll give you a little trick. If you can't see through it, be prepared. Your first mouthful, you're going to make faces. It's way too strong. You want it a mid-range color. You don't want it so light that you can't hardly see it. You want it middle range. If you can't see to the bottom of the cup, it's not that it's bad, just be prepared. Yeah. Yeah. I want to get back to the root question though, because I didn't finish that one. If you do harvest something that you're not sure where it came from, don't boil it. I know that's an old school way, but if you think about it, you're already making your preparation out of it. And that would be a go-to because we boiled everything. You're going to want to use a high concentration of heat on it. Being careful not to burn it. So put it in a hot oven. I recommend if you don't know where it's coming from, unless you really desperately need it, don't. Because so many of the fertilizers and things they use now, you're still going to get some of it because that's the heart of the plant. It's the meat. It's going right into it. But you can use heat if you need it, and you're, because there are sometimes you just need something. Use heat. Put it in a mid-range 350 degree oven and watch it so it doesn't cook. Question? Yes? Okay. She would like to know how you would process roasted roots. A lot of people want to drink roasted chicory. And that, I will touch on one thing though. If you're roasting comfrey is not to drink. You don't want to drink it. Just in general. You can take small amounts. We that are trained know how much to give you, but that's like kind of like playing a game of chicken you don't want to play, because it can cause you to be very ill. Very ill. It won't kill you, but you're going to be hurting for a week. So I don't think you want to do that. But that's a good question. But if you want to roast chicory, dandelion root's another one. We used to call it poor man's coffee. We grew up on it. It's a wonderful flavor. You're going to want to go out and find your roots in the spring or the fall, and you're going to want to dig them up. Most of the time one of those dandelion diggers works real well. If you can't get to them in the fall, mark them. Put a little marker next to it so you find them in the spring and you can get them before they get too far along. We did it for years. I still do it. Now I go out with my little basket. Dig them up. You want to rinse them really well. In fact, soak them. An old trick I used to do is I'd soak them in cold water at least 3 times because they get a lot of dirt, especially in this area because we do have different soils that have clay. Where I grew up there was clay. It does not come off. and we all ate some dirt when we were little, but you don't want to drink it. It's awful. And then what you want to do is you want to cut it into mid-range pieces about this big, because then you can roast it, and then your coffee grinder or your mortar and pestle will handle it. If you leave it whole, my best suggestion for things like that that are real tough, take a kitchen towel, and we all have family members. I still have one that have the meat mallet with the big spikes on it. That's going to be your friend. That's how you're going to get into those. And just, it's good therapy though. It is. And you'll get it down to the pieces that you want. Yeah. It is. Why do you think our grandmothers did that? I don't peel it first because there's so many nutrients in the peel of those roots. The only reason I told you to peel some of the others is if they have thistle on them. If you are going to drink anything or eat anything that might have any kind of little hairs, even if they're not like stinging nettle, just make sure that you process them correctly because it does not feel good when you go to try to digest them. It's painful. So you don't want to do that. Yes?
Is there a difference between nettle and stinging nettle?
There are different varieties of nettle in this area. Not so much. Most of it's stinging nettle. There is a wild nettle that grows around here that does not sting, but it does not have the properties that the stinging nettle has. The stinging nettle is the one that gets to all your respiratory, it gets to your allergies, it helps with Meniere's disease, it takes fluid off your ear. That's the one that you're going to want to go for. But if you get it in the spring, you're not going to run the chance as much of getting stung. That's when you can eat it. We used to eat salad out of it all the time. It's very good for you. Yes?
First of all, could you distinguish, are there different kinds of thistle? Is there a specific one you're talking about?
Oh, there's a lot of thistle. I was talking about Scottish thistle. That is an excellent question. That's a good one. Let me know if you guys want to see thistles, because I have about 10 of them growing in my yard that I use, and I will bring them so you can see the flowers. I've got Scottish, I've got blessed, I have northern thistle, and I do have seeds. That's another thing I want to tell all of you. I've done this for years. If you want to try to grow something and I have seeds to share, come see me. If you have a green thumb, I will give you some seeds and you can try it. You don't have to just get your plants from me. I'm here to help you guys. So if I have seed, and warning though, thistle, put it where you want it, because if you leave it before you harvest it, your whole yard will be thistle. If the wind blows, you will have a lot. It does not take a lot to grow that, but it's beautiful. They all have the same medicinal purposes too.
Okay, so will it matter which thistle she's picking?
Not really. The only one you want to watch the most about is blessed thistle. Blessed thistle is really used for blood pressure. It's fantastic at regulating it, but you want to make sure you don't take more than 2 cups a day.
Okay, there's milk thistle?
Milk thistle's a totally different, that's actually a different family.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a good question.
So, okay, there's the whole thistle thing, but when you get through with that, the other thing I wanted to ask about, since we're talking about winter herbs and so on,
Yeah.
can you get into the warming herbs? Because I know some of that is spice trade, but is there anything that is specific?
I can.
And be
That's
careful about not expanding your blood vessels and getting faint when you take it.
That's a really good question. That goes into a Vuric medicine, and I talked to somebody who today is studying that. So that's a really good thing. I can touch on that afterwards. Now with the thistle, milk thistle is what you want to know about. He's asking about different varieties of thistles. There's many of them. He brought up a good question. Milk thistle is not really a thistle. It is another family. Milk thistle is fantastic for cancer. Milk thistle is good for cleansing your blood, and it's also good for anxiety. Really good for anxiety. So, and that gets, a lot of times milk thistle, there's 2 varieties. One of them people call milkweed, actually in the same family, gets the pods on it. And you can use that as well. Just don't take the silk out of the pods. It doesn't process very well. You don't want to digest that. That can get stuck in your colon or different things. Yes?
Something you see everywhere around now, goldenrod.
Mhm.
I know you can make essential oil out of it.
Yep.
Do you know of medicinal benefits as an herb?
There are some, but goldenrod is another one of those, it's kind of two-edged sword because so many people are allergic to it. And if they are allergic to it, if they ingest it, you could cause problems. So they're medicinally, goldenrod's more for topical. That's why they make essential oil out of it. But in the old medicine, you could drink it during a fever. But you just have to be very careful with it. Because so many people have allergies. That's another thing you have to, if you're allergic to it, don't drink it. Unless you know it's something because you have a buildup in your body. So, but you can use it for things. Topically though, if you get a bad burn, you can use it. Same thing with jewelweed, which grows like crazy around here.
About that.
Yeah.
For like poison ivy,
Yep,
what do you,
that's the antidote for it.
yeah, what do you do?
If you're out and about and you're getting poison ivy and you see jewelweed, take that milky substance that's in that stalk and just put it right on there. That's your antidote. Yep, it's your antidote. You can make a salve out of it too though.
That's what I was gonna ask. I made like,
Where do you find jewelweed?
so, my kids call them blobs and it work out very well. Because I made them use it every time they came back from
I'm chuckling because I have 3 kids and I'm raising this way, but sometimes they're like, I trust you, but no.
I didn't know what the simplest way to make like a soap or a salve, like the soap kind of like neutralizes it, kind
Yeah.
of just wash off after.
Yeah, soap not only neutralizes, you have to be careful with certain things because jewelweed's a little different. It's a sap. That's why many of you that have had my soap for years, if you notice, I don't put jewelweed in a soap as in countermeasure for poison ivy because it's a sap. It's a different thing. The ones that are real sappy, milky herbs do very well in a salve. And salves are very easy to make. If you want to put that up for a winter medicine as well, very good thing to do. And now is the perfect time with prep time because we're getting cooler here. Because your house gets hot. Very hot. Which I learned being down in Florida. Really hot. But if you need any help with salves, let me know too. But you can harvest it. Jewelweed though, if you want to use the dried part of the plant, you can do the blossoms and the leaves. If you don't want to use the sappy part. But the sappy part's the good, real neutralizing. So, and I think I touched on that last time too, I want to address that. If you get poison ivy, poison oak, or poison sumac, look for jewelweed. If you get into it and you're camping, that's the antidote. It's going to be growing there. So, and next year, I'm up here every year. I can bring some of that too. There's a lot of books out there. One of the best things are you talking about identifying or using? Okay, she's asking about books. I'm going to try to repeat. That's bad on me. If I don't repeat a question, like I said, throw something at me. She wants to know if they're good books to identify or to recommend. There's a lot of books out there to tell you what to use with things. That's a hard one. Big one from the... I know there's a good one. Rosemary Gladstone's a good one. Rosemary Gladstone, she is an old medicine woman from the Hudson Valley. I have met her myself. She's a sweetheart. She has a lot of really good books out there as to what you read. I've actually been in different places with her. We've had a great time. So, different places both had talks. If you watch any on YouTube, they will say, here's my disclosure. Yeah, I can't tell you to take this, but this is the information on it. It's to cover everyone.
Just so that when I'm out there and I'm looking, I can do I can say, okay, I know this, I know this.
That's a good one. I want to tell you that because Buffalo has botanical gardens. There is a huge network of master gardeners here. They all put out their own books. A lot of times they're free. They're big on plant identification. If you contact your natural